everybody, and welcome to Penelope Possum channel. With me, your host is Penelope the Possum. We're continuing the reading of Come Live in the Ashes of My Heart, otherwise known as The Ghost Tree. I started reading this a while ago and never finished it really. So we're here to try to do that. Just a moment. Okay, there we go.
Tomato soup and the grilled cheese.
Thank you, dear. Sorry for the generalized chaos. Anyways, so let's get going and do this, yes? I believe last we were here. I'm gonna start at they meant to bind me. They meant to bind me. I fought, but it was a short contest. I tried to explain, but they would hear nothing more from me. I was locked in the basement that night. And by week's end, this room had been constructed, and I was told it would be my new home until I was released from the devil's clutches. I believe since we're doing a male, I'm gonna real quick change my voice. Oh dear. Just a moment. Oh, there we go. It was being weird for a second. Sorry. A voice I made myself. Just in case. I found all this is terrifying, of course, and I screamed and cried to be released. But it was no use. In the back of my mind. Okay, never mind. That's not working. Maybe this one might be better. Okay. Maybe a little. There. Yeah. Okay. In the back of my mind, I also found it all very strange. And upon reflection, I find it even more so. My parents were religious people, as were John and I, but not overly so. I had never known my family to be prone to bouts of overzealous piety or religious hysteria. And while I had no doubt that that was what they had seen when I climbed the ghost tree was disturbing. And while I had no doubt that what they had seen when I climbed the ghost tree was disturbing, I would never have thought them capable of anything approaching this. The abject abandonment and imprisonment of their own child. Yet I have no clear alternative answer for the past 8 years. Their determination has never wavered. I've never seen any real sign of hope from them that they would reach a point where they would release me. Rather, they move about like corpses or hot air balloons, floating along the buoyancy of sad acceptance and insane conviction. They go through the routines and rituals of caring for me the minimal amount that is required. But I imagine they try their best to forget about me the rest of the time. Just as I can feel my memory of the world and all its colors and smells and sources of joy and imagination fading from me, I can only imagine I have faded away from the world, a ghost haunting the lowest chambers of this house and my family's minds. And as I have said previously, it was my knowledge and belief in the ghost tree that sustained me through all these dark years, feeling that it was special, that it had somehow picked me. And the magical connection between myself and it would bear more fruit than me dying in this makeshift cell. But still I felt the last candle of even this secret hope guttering low. Never heard that this word used in that context. Okay. Then I saw the root poking through the mold. It was a tiny thing, 3 feet up the back of the wall of my room. It was impossible to see it in the dark and easy to miss in the candlelight. When I saw it and recognized it as a root from the tree, I felt a thrill of excitement run through me. Reaching out a probing finger, I touched the tip of it gently. And gasped at the rush of energy that shot through me at the contact. Images and sounds flooded through my mind, and I felt the vitality return to me that I hadn't known since my family first betrayed me. My finger had come to move away from the root. At the shock of that first touch, and when I reached towards it again, I saw the root move to meet me. I saw the root move to meet me. Holding my finger to it the second time was less shocking, but no less profound. I felt my mind drifting as my eyes lost focus and my breathing slow. I was sitting on the edge of my bed, leaning forward with an index finger touching the strange plank. And as I watched, the wall in front of me seemed to melt away. It was no longer a brick wall, or even the bare earth behind it. Instead, it was a large tunnel a foot taller than I was, wreathed in roots from the ghost tree and filled with a sweet-smelling breeze. Smell was the most powerful part to me, as though my body and mind were so starved for air that it wasn't rancid, stale, that the breeze from the tunnel sent me into a deep state of euphoria. Hello. Before you ask about the voice, I'm using my voice changer again. I thought it'd be appropriate, given we're reading from the perspective of a man. I'm also eating a grilled cheese with some tomato soup. I can't say that right. You're a little late. It's fine. Let me finish my grilled cheese real quick. Where was I? Yes, euphoria. I stood and walked into that tunnel without hesitation, unaware of where I was going, but resolute in my determination that any place had to be better than the one I was leaving behind. As you might imagine, I have much to learn. Oh, hold on. I've learned and experienced a lot more since I started transcribing Justin's book. This record is quickly becoming more of an insurance policy for my safety than an outlet for some kind of relationship angst. I think I might be in real trouble here and I don't understand what's going on. But before I get further into that, I will post the last portion of Justin's writing and then come back after to explain what has happened since I first read it. Excuse me. Alright. When I entered the tunnel for the first time, I walked for what seemed like hours. The path would slant up and down, wind this way and that, but the strangest part was that I never grew tired. Whether it was just my exuberance at finally being free of that room, or from something suffusing. Suffusing? Is that the word? Whatever, suffusing. The sweet air I was breathing. I went on until I reached a branching path. I took the rightmost of 3 options and went on. 5 more decisions later, always taking the rightmost option, I found myself approaching a wall. I feared that my journey was either at an end or that I might have to try and breach the wall and continue. But as I drew closer, it faded away, and my passage was clear. I was in a basement, much like my own, but different in a variety of ways. There was no wall and door partitioning part of this basement into a cell. And the space was entirely bare of any possessions or furniture. After glancing around the basement for a moment, I crept slowly up the steps, and stairs worked, and eased open the door to the kitchen. The room was bereft of any signs of life or habitation. The only noise was some distant sound from outside. Exploring the rest of the house, I found much of the same. There were no signs of anyone living there. When I looked out the window upstairs, I began to understand why. This version of the house was sitting on the bedrock of a small island surrounded by a blue sea as far as the eye could see. That wasn't entirely true, I suppose, as I could see a larger landmass near the edge of the horizon to the west. But that did nothing to change the fact that this house was wholly isolated and remote. Excuse me. In the span of 30 minutes, I have walked the length and breadth of this island twice, and confirmed my suspicion, that I was alone in this corner of whatever strange world this might be. Well, almost alone. 200 yards from the house where the ghost trees stand. Oh my god. 200 yards from the house, the ghost tree stood proudly, its leaves blowing gently in the breeze, coming off the water. More soup. It couldn't be the same tree. Yet at the same time, I felt sure it was. The tree was somehow connecting this place and where I was from. like an umbilical cord or some kind. My mind was torn between taking in all the strange and beautiful sights and marveling at the implications of this hidden alternate world. In the end, the joy of being in the fresh air and sunshine won out. I spent an hour walking the small stretch of sandy beach in the front of the house and looking at the exterior of the house itself. It was strange. This house was like mine, but it wasn't the same. For one thing, it was in far too good a condition, with none of the age or damage that existed on mine when I last saw its outer walls. For another, there was no sign that a person had ever lived there at all. I saw no screws or nail holes, no faded stains from a piece of furniture or a plant. I had the thought this wasn't the house at all, but rather the idea of house. I am a little bit tongue-tied, but that's not unusual. Lit. Alright. The perfect idea. The idea was compelling, and for some reason it mollified my need for further explanation. Still, I couldn't stay there indefinitely. I still needed clean water and food. I want to ensure I could find my way back to my world before I stayed too long here or elsewhere. If there were other worlds at the end of those branching paths. With a heavy heart, I went back inside. It's not interfering with the reading, so it doesn't matter. I'm gonna put away my dish real quick. Be right back. Hello, Chirpy Bud. Here's a Chirpy. Chirpy now. What? Maybe.
I'm not going to finish this.
Explodo has generously offered me the rest of his soup. Yum yum. I went back inside. Going back down into the basement was the hardest part. I forced myself down those steps into the place that served as my hell in another version of the world. The wall began to dissolve at my approach. And on impulse, I bent down and scratched number 2 onto the floor in the area where my bed was in my version. I wanted to keep track if there were multiple places too similar to discern. And that seemed the best way on short notice. What? Oh my goodness, why are you so sweet?
Why you squeak, chicken run?
She's full of squeak. Oh my goodness. Dumb. Full of dumb. Oh my goodness. Princess Dummy Puff. What? You want up? Up you go. Hi, baby. Good kitty. Excuse me. Where was I? Ah, there we go. Then, with a deep breath, I walked back through the wall and into the tunnel. I backtracked rather easily, and within a few minutes I was walking back into my cell. After looking around the room briefly to ensure it truly was my cell, I scratched a 1 into the floor beneath my bed, and then I lay down on my bed and began to formulate a plan. I would store up food and water for the next 2 days, and then venture out on the 3rd. I would either find the tools in some other world to secure my freedom here, or find a world more accepting of me than this one. The last 2 days have been the hardest of all my time here, I think. The anticipation of new places, more freedom, is so wonderful I can hardly bear the fear that it won't work for me a second time, or that my plan will be discovered. Fills me with the deepest dread. But I am at the precipice now. I made a crude supply bag out of my pillowcase in the wall, which has been dormant for the past 2 days, is now already fading away like morning mist in a patch of sunlight. It may be that these are the last words I write in this precious book that has been my sole confidant in the darkness and the light of these last few days. I hope this is the end of the story, chronicled or no. Finds me well and safe and free. That was the end. That was the end of Just Impairing. Just when I finished reading it, I went back down to that room and saw the number 1 scratched into the floor as he described. But more than that, I saw what looked like a thin red root sticking out between the bricks on the far wall. Meow. Chitter chirp. Aw, Evie Rosie behind me. Didn't even notice there was a sleepy Evie Weepy Rosie Posy behind me. Merp, 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 merp. It was just outside the edge of the black, spongy man shape on the wall. When I stepped back, I saw it was actually close enough to one shadow hand that looked as though the root and the finger were moving to touch each other. I felt a thrill of excitement and fear. I knew it. I was reaching out to touch the root myself. Then a sudden noise from upstairs brought me up short, only inches from contact. It was Phil, coming home. Still determined not to share what I've discovered, I hid the book and went up to greet him, trying to spin vague tales of unpacking and home improvements while counting the hours till he was asleep and I could think of what to do next. Ultimately, I decided it was a good thing that Phil interrupted me. I needed to learn more about all of this before I made any rash decisions. I started by asking Phil for the name of the real estate agent that had sold us the house. I had been present for the signing and some of the paperwork at the end, but I had never dealt with the agent. But Phil had told me there was no agent. He had bought the house from an estate administrator who had listed the house online. And that was strange, because I felt sure he'd mentioned an agent before. But I couldn't say so for sure. He asked why I was wondering, and I made up an excuse that I wanted to know if the old owners had the name of the specific paint colors they'd use in the house. In typical Phil fashion, he accepted this without any further argument and finished getting ready for bed. Next day, I went to the library, which, unlike every movie or TV show I've ever seen, was grossly unhelpful in finding any details about the creepy old house I was living in or its prior owners. I was running out of ideas when I passed a sign that said Historical Society. The next day, I went to the library with... rereading. It was apparently a quasi-museum to local history through all its small size and overwhelming devotion to old farm equipment. Though its small size and overwhelming devotion to farm equipment, and pictures of the main street 50 years earlier didn't give me the best impression of its depth or breadth. Fortunately, the woman who ran the place was a very friendly and knowledgeable person. She said that her great-grandmother had actually been a distant cousin of the Paring family. Jackpot! They were an odd bunch, to be sure, kept to themselves, especially as the boys got older. When people started noticing that Justin was nowhere to be found, never came out to town, or went to church anymore. It was a different time back then. People tended to their own business more, and they weren't going to ask questions if they didn't have to. Rumor were that Justin had run off or died and his parents just couldn't take it. So nobody ever saw Justin again? I felt a mixture of sadness and relief welling up inside me. Sadness that Justin's terrible life had been real, and relief that he might have actually finally escaped it to a better place. She shook her head. But then the rest of the family didn't last too long either. One night someone came in on them and killed the parents and the brother, or at least that's what people figured. There's blood and they were all missing. No bodies were ever found.
Squeak! Hello, Squeak. Come here, Squeak. Oof, chubby.
chubby, chubby. No tomato soup for you, baby. Tomato soup isn't good for kittens. No, no, no. Tomatoes are bad for kitties. I couldn't help but feel some grim satisfaction that they were punished for how they treated Justin, whatever he did to them. It wasn't enough. But the woman was frowning now. I could have sworn I had a picture of him. I know I did. I swear this is gonna drive me crazy till I find it. She looked up from talking to herself and patted my arm with a smile. I'm sorry, honey, but I tell you what. Give me your number and I'll send you a copy of the picture if I find it. Half an hour later and I was back down in the basement. Enough with being safe. I wanted to see how much of it was real. I reached out and touched the root, feeling a surge of power flood through my body as I did so. Falling back against the rotten mattress, my hand punched through the fabric and onto rusty springs. I jerked my hand away. Fears of tetanus dancing in my head. But I saw no cut or scratch. Besides, I had other things to think about. Like how the wall in front of me just dissolved. Still feeling the rush of energy crackling across my skin, I stood up and began walking forward. The tunnel was just as he described, and I could smell the sweet, glowing air wafting into that dank secret room as I felt my phone buzz once and then again. Stifling a wave of irritation, I opened my phone and I took out my phone and opened it. There were 2 new text messages from another I didn't have a name associated with. When I opened it, I realized it was the woman from the Historical Society. The first was a message and it said, I found it! This is a picture from Easter 1901. Baptist Church took family photos for all the local families that were members. This is the Perring family. Left to right. John, Stuart, Edna, and Justin. The second text was the picture itself. It was black and white, of course, but of surprisingly good quality for its age. Zooming in on my phone, I filled the screen with the faces of each person in turn. What? Oh, dear God. This might be bad, guys. I think we're getting into the scary part. John. His smile friendly but sad. His eyes hard and... Stuart, his eyes hard and stern. Edna, her face open and warm. Justin, it was impossible. I texted the woman back, asking if she was sure. She was sure that the person in the picture on the far right was Justin Perring back in 1901. A moment later, she responded that she was certain. Was something wrong? I didn't reply back. I had no response to give that would make any sense. Because the person in the picture, years younger looking, but unmistakably him. A person she said was Justin Perring. I knew him. I knew him very well. It was Phil. Just then I heard the front door open upstairs. He was home. This is the last part, guys. We might be done. We might be done, guys. I considered going upstairs, trying to make up more half-truths confronting Phil/Justin, but instead I ran into the tunnel. 5 feet in the wall behind me, faded into view, while I assumed I could still get back out that way. At the moment, I didn't care. I was tired of waiting for something special, tired of being scared when something this magical was right in front of me. I was going to see things for myself instead of just reading about it. The tunnel went on, chamber after chamber of deep red roots and dark, loamy earth, just as Justin described. I eventually came to a branching of paths. Instead of taking the rightmost, I took the center, and on I went for what felt like hours, but I was never tired or hungry. With each branching path, I felt my urgency to go further growing. Center path every time, always leading to another choice further down the tangled path. When I saw I was entering a larger chamber, it was roughly circular in shape. The ceiling and walls made up of an endless cascade of roots woven tightly together except for several openings every few feet that I assumed led to other twisting paths. The roots weren't red for the most part, but a smoky gray that was almost black. And the flesh of those roots was blistered and scarred in many places, as though there had been a fire there at one point. This is creepy. Looking at the center of the room, I saw a small upgrowth of branches that almost looked like a pedestal of sorts for the black tangle of roots that lay atop it. If I had to guess, I say this is where the fire had started. But whatever had happened, the ghost tree, or trees, depending on how you looked at it, survived. I could see green shoots and new, unscarred red bark poking through the black ashy residue the flames had left behind. I was reaching out to touch it. I felt a strong and compelling need to touch it, but something held me back. Whatever this place was, it was clearly significant, important. I had a sense in some ways it was more of a doorway and a threshold than even passing into the tunnel had been. So I stepped back, picked a new tunnel, and journeyed on. My cell phone was useless for phone calls here. I used it to keep track of my choice in the larger chamber, and a couple times when there was an even number of tunnels and no center path to pick. Finally, after what felt like an hour or more, I saw a wall. When I approached it, it dissolved away much like the wall in my house had done, but instead of entering a dark, secret cell, I appeared to be entering a large, well-lit room that someone used as a woodworking shop. Entering quietly, I listened for any signs of movement, but there were none. I was still in the basement of the house, of a version of the house, and the combination of similarities and differences made it seem surreal. I paused to look under a workbench occupied by a belt sander and what I thought might be a Dremel of some sort. And there I saw a faded 43 scratched into the floor where the bed was in my version of the house. Going into other room. I saw it was some kind of media room, though I thought what must have been a television was simply a large pane of either glass or plastic. I have a big fluffy rose behind me. I know, isn't she so fluffums? Suspended from the ceiling by 2 braided wires. I had no idea how something like that would work, but I supposed it didn't matter. I am aware there have been times where I hadn't noticed Rosie was still in my office after doing a video like this and accidentally locked her in here because she blends in with my stuffed animals. Yes, she does, especially when she's sleeping. I could tell someone, if Rose was just sleeping very quietly right there on my bed, that she was a stuffed animal of some sort, and anybody would believe me. But I suppose it didn't matter. It might be the least of the differences in this world. I crept up the stairs and eased open the basement door, and as it swung open, I saw 2 men sitting at a table eating cereal. Or rather, they had been eating cereal. Now they were staring at me. What the fuck? She is. Be right back. Out of soup. Soup gone. No more soup. Ah. One of them bellowed as he stood up. His expression a dangerous combination of fear and anger. Who the fuck are you, lady? The other man was trying to calm him down, but he wasn't listening. I slammed the door back shut before he reached it, and ran down the stairs 2 at a time, desperate to reach the wall and terrified that it might not open for me this time. But the tunnel was there, ready and waiting, and as I passed into it, the wall closed behind me, protecting me. I stood there for a moment, hands on my knees and breathing heavy, more out of fear and adrenaline than exertion. I had to be more careful. I never knew what I was going to be getting myself into, and I had to be ready. I debated heading back then. I could get proper supplies and then head it back out to explore worlds with more than just my cell phone and determination. But I finally decided I'd give it one more try first. I backtracked 2 junctions and then took another path. This time, the tunnel went on for quite some time. After 7 more choices, I found myself at another wall. The basement I entered was pitch black. I gave a shudder as I crossed over into it with my cell phone's flashlight app acting as my only sources of illumination. It was freezing here. I almost turned back, but then I spied a number etched into the floor. 71. For some reason, that made me want to go on. I needed to see more of what Justin had seen, to try to understand more of what he experienced before I confronted him. He'd obviously been lying to me, possibly trying to trick me into something. And I didn't want to go into that conversation with nothing more but his old writings to guide me. So I went forward, very slowly, into the rest of the basement, holding up my little phone like a guiding star as I pushed through the cold darkness. I listened at the top of the stairs for a couple of minutes before deciding it's probably safe to open. And when I did so, I saw the house was totally empty. Much like it Justin had described in his trip to the house on the island. I also realized while the house itself was dark, there was a faint blue glow coming through the windows. My first thought was that I was in a world where it was late twilight or early morning. When I approached the window over the kitchen sink, I saw I was wrong. I was in a cave. The house, as strange and impossible as it seemed, was sitting in some kind of massive cave. I went to the front door and opened it. The air was even colder outside. While there were no distinct sources of light, the air was saturated with a soft blue glow. It reminded me in some ways of the light in the tunnels of the ghost tree. But instead of being comforting, it filled me with a vague and terrible sense of dread. Still, I wanted to see this through. I left the door open for a quick escape, walked a few steps further into the cave. It was an enormous cavern, and in the distance I could barely make out several dark spots I assumed were tunnels leading out to other parts of whatever cave system this was, on whatever world I had found myself in. I turned to my right and saw the ghost tree there, its red branches and green flowing leaves, blowing in the currents of some breeze I couldn't feel. I felt a surge of happiness and familiarity at seeing it, as though I'd run into an old friend. I found myself heading towards it, then I noticed the body stacked at its base. Hold on. Perfectly preserved, 20 bodies or more were stacked at the tree's base. And my first thought was that some kind of strange offering by whomever or whatever lived here. Then I saw the black lines of corruption that traced itself from several bodies to the trunk of this massive tree. The bodies were poisoning it. I saw the distended belly of one of the bodies shift, or something inside the bodies was poisoning it. I took a step back, taking in more of the details of the cavern that I had stupidly decided would be good to explore. There were more bodies at different spots along the floor. Some with swollen, shifting stomachs, others as looking as though they were simply taking a nap. All told, I saw over 100 bodies in the dim gloom of that unending indigo light. Among all those bodies were numerous lines cut in the stony floor, almost as though they had been cut with a blade or a saw. What do you offer as tribute for your need, traveler? The voice echoed through my mind like the high tones of a church bell. Intelligent and feminine. Oops, I made it more masculine. Oh well. Carried an undercurrent of inhuman emotion that could have been a cousin of anger or amusement, or both. I spun around looking for the source. At first I saw nothing, but then, at one of the black tunnels in the distance, I saw a pair of blue flames dancing in the air. They were its eyes. I ran into the house, shutting the front and basement doors behind me as I ran down the stairs and back to the tunnel. That was enough for me. I wanted to go home and leave all this behind. I'd talk to Justin or Phil if he wanted, but after that I was packing my shit and never coming back to any version of that fucking house again. It seemed like hours to make it back. I found the way easily, even when I ran across the central burn chamber with its multitudes of paths. I picked out the right one without hesitation. But it still felt like it was taking forever. When I finally crossed back into Justice's cell, I was so filled with relief that it took me several moments to notice that it was different. The wall dividing the cell from the rest of the basement was back up. I had dismantled a large central portion of the brick wall that had separated Justin's room from the rest of the house, and that had all been replaced with new bricks, except for a small space, 2 bricks wide and tall. It's just enough space for me to see Phil looking in at me. "Hey there, honey. Been on a little trip, have you? Did you have a good time?" I ran it to the wall, realizing in passing the cell was now lit by a pair of LED lanterns on the nightstand and chest, respectively. He was setting me up in there, the bastard. "Phil, Justin, whatever you call yourself, let me out of here." He smiled at me pleasantly. "No can do, Buttercup. Even if I did, it wouldn't do you any good. You belong to the tree now. I felt it when you passed from me to you." I pushed back against the brick angrily, but it didn't budge. "Why are you doing this?" I paused and added, "I love you." His smile grew colder. "That's real cute. You know you've been gone for an entire day. Only started working on the wall a couple of hours ago. Before that, I did some light reading. Your previous fucking journal." Just taking a couple steps back, he lifted my journal from a dwindled stack of bricks he'd brought down for the job. "See, the difference between your journal and mine is that I had actual problems to write about. Well, mine is for barely written. Jesus, I had a 9th grade education when I wrote this. And you have a master's degree. The modern education system really is shit." He shook his head and before taking a deep breath. "But no, I'm mad and hurt. It's making me petty. Let me start over." He sat the journal back on the bricks and approached the hole in the wall. "When I went into those tunnel again, I was so happy and excited, I thought I was about to go on some magical adventure, live a life full of freedom and wonder. Instead, you know what I found?" I thought I'd best humor him for now. What's that? He wasn't smiling any longer. After traveling to over 200 different worlds, I figured out 3 things. 1. Many worlds are filled with people, much like us. After a few dozen of those, I gave up on finding a world where people weren't largely selfish pieces of shit. 2. Some of those worlds are much, much worse. Phil paused, cocking his head. Which ones did you go to? I don't know if you noticed, but I remembered pretty much everyone I went to. I stared at him dully, trying not to show how much I wanted to break through that wall and reach him. 43 and 71? He seemed to ponder for a moment, then his eyes went wide. 71? Oh shit, really? You have an awesome sense of direction. Wow, yeah, I don't advise a return trip there. I shuddered at the memory. Yeah, I don't plan to. Look, I don't want to go anywhere anymore. Please, just let me out. I'll do whatever you want. Stay, go, I don't care. Just don't leave me in here. He was already shaking his head. He actually looked sad now. No, I'm sorry, no. Because the 3rd thing I figured out is that once you touch the root and enter the tunnel, you're bound to the ghost tree. At first I thought it was a gift. I aged incredibly slowly. I never got hungry or thirsty or tired in the tunnels. All these places I could go. Phil shoved my journal off in the brick pile onto the floor and sat down. But after a few months of that, I got tired of it. I found a world that seemed to be less terrible than the most. Settled down, built a life there, fell in love. He put his hands in his lap, and I could see that they were balled into fists. And then one day I woke up in the tunnels, in what I call the heart room. I found my way back to my new world, my new life. But the tree wouldn't open the way. Eventually I figured out that I had to go back and stay with it in the heart room. Couldn't explore any world during that time. I couldn't explore any world during that time. What seemed like an eternity passed, and periodically I'd go back to the tunnel I needed and see the wall up until finally it wasn't. I was so happy I ran through the basement, up the stairs. I had set out to find my girlfriend or any of the friends I had made. That's when I realized 10 years had passed. He leaned forward, looking at me somberly. What it amounts to is this. You can go and explore, but after about 2 or 3 years, the tree pulls you back, and after that, you have to stay for it. Stay with it for 5 times whatever time you had on the outside. I don't know if it's lonely, or if it needs us for something, or if it's just mean. That's the rules. I started to say I was sorry. He just raised his hand with a glare. Save it! I'm trying to explain his kindness so you don't start all this totally in the dark like I was. Don't push it. He waited a second and then went on. After I figured out how much time had passed, I gave up on staying in that world. Went to exploring again, although without the hope of a permanent life somewhere, didn't mean as much. Figured out what I'm telling you over the years. Staying different amounts of time, different places. And after everything I saw, I realized something. I wasn't special. None of us are. I've seen multiple older versions of myself. They were all unremarkable. I come up across scores of worlds, and there weren't any more than a handful that stand out. And while that was depressing in some ways, it also gave me hope that I didn't have to be the one to bear this burden forever. I could find a replacement. As you think you might have figured out by now, I did find a way with my parents and brother too. It was during a dark time early on before I had found my new world and love. After I'd become despondent in my travels, I came back and killed them in their sleep, dragging their bodies into tunnels for a reason that made sense at the time, but is lost on me now years later. I came back and bought the house from the bank who was left holding it. Oddly enough, people hadn't been lining up to buy the old murder house with the creepy vibes, so I got it cheap. This is in the 1950s, and I've been sitting on it since, periodically coming out to try and find a good replacement. But it hasn't been easy. I figured out over time you can't just knock someone out and put them in the tunnel. Can't force them to agree to enter it either. No, they have to voluntarily touch the root under the tunnel for them to be bound in your place. He laughed bitterly. Of course, I didn't know that for sure until now. It was all guesswork. About 15 years ago, I decided it was no use, and I was better off trying to kill the fucking tree even if I died with it. So I came out, got a drum of gasoline, and tried to burn the hot room. Yeah, I saw. He looked up at my words and grinned, giving a nod. It didn't look like it worked too well. His expression darkened, and he stood back up. No, it didn't. I think it hurt it, but I don't know if it can die. So I gave up on that, and went back to trying to find someone that could take my place, even if it even was possible. That's when you came along. Well, not you, but another version of you. My eyes widened. What are you talking about? He quirked an eyebrow. What do you think? Alternate worlds, alternate yous. Keep up. I met another version of you. Got into a relationship with them. Got them to the house. But they weren't as curious and hard-working as you. They didn't take the bait or my subtle hints or even me discovering the hidden room I had made there by the time I was getting them interested. I was pulled back into the fucking heart. You should have given them a mysterious note. I knew I should have kept quiet since I just made him angrier, but I couldn't help it. But this time, Phil's looking confused. No, I didn't leave you. No, wait, what did it say? Come live in the ashes of my heart. You're saying you didn't write that? It was in your, or at least your old Justin handwriting. Phil shrugged. Honestly, no note for me. I guess the tree did that. Its attempt at being mysterious and ironic, maybe. I don't know. I wondered how you got onto it so quick. Guess the tree was tired of me too, which is understandable. He looked away, his expression strange. Anyways, I could leave the tunnels again. Came back here and found you. Sought you out, if I'm being honest. Now you know. I actually loved you. I've been really conflicted this entire time about if I should even go through with this. Well, he glanced down at my journal on the ground. At least before reading that. He turned up and grabbed a new brick, scraping mortar into the space it was going to go. I started screaming at him to stop, but he didn't pause. After a couple of minutes, there was only one brick left out of place. Cask of Amontillado for anybody? Oh my god. This is definitely giving Cask of Amontillado vibes. For sure, for sure, for sure. Right? I put those lanterns in there for you. And there's a backpack in the bed, on the bed with food and water. I would suggest you travel around. Just be careful and mind your time limits. Don't get attached to any place because you can't stay forever. I left you a new journal on the chest. Maybe you'll write about this part too. If you leave it behind when you're done, I'll keep it safe. Maybe let other people read what you wrote, even if it won't matter. He paused, his eyes troubled. I guess I'll be the villain in your story. He started putting mortar around the edges of the final opening. I went to 211 different worlds, and you know what? There were cells in like this one in 93 of them, along with 93 corpse versions of me living in that room. Oh, I just wanted to believe my family made a mistake, that they were good people and just picked the wrong way when the path forked. But no, that was just who they were through and through. He picked up the last brick and he put the last brick into position and started pushing it in. I guess everyone is someone's villain. And thus, the ghost tree, otherwise known as Can I Come Live in the Ashes of My Heart, is finally finished. Oh my god, that took the entire hour. We did it! Okay. As it stands, possums, we are completely out of possum time.
Done streaming?
Yes, I'm done streaming. I'm just doing the outro now. As always, please remember to stay out of car engine compartments, stay out of traffic. Being walled in a tunnel, yeah, it is pretty creepy. But it is definitely a kind of story that exists. Stay out of small spaces you can get trapped in. Stay hydrated. Stay awesome, possums. I love you all. Have a wonderful night. Come hang out with me again next Tuesday if I'm feeling up to it. Goodbye.